So I've spent the last 2 days with my uncle. There was an open evening weekend, which is where some places are open, which is a really good thing because it gets me out the house because I can do things. So I did Winterbourne House yesterday and Aston House today, and I was going to do Oakwood House, but it was raining all this morning, and yeah, I felt like it was going to rain. Well, it said it was going to rain in the evening, and it kind of did, but it wasn't really that bad. But we went to the film instead and saw the Beetlejuice film, which was not the best, but it was okay. My uncle walked out though. He doesn't really like films like that. It's only certain films that he likes, but we have very different taste in films. But yeah, it's I have making an attempt. I've made quite an attempt to go more healthy. So I usually always have two sugars in my tea or coffee. But yeah, before I used to have it like once a day, and then I started having like a coffee and a tea, and then I started having like two coffees and a tea, and then if you're drinking two sugars in each one, it turns into like six spoonfuls of sugar, which is quite a lot. So I was trying to cut back, and I attempted to by saying I'm gonna go for sweetener because my uncle is overweight, but he prefers sweetener because it I don't understand his logic, but I do understand thinking sweetener is better. It probably is. It's probably better than sugar. But yeah, I have failed to switch because I put the sweetener in, and then feel like I just want one sugar, and then I have another few more sips, and it's just like just want one more sugar, and then it's like, oh, I've just done two sugars, and my one Kit Kat a day is turning. I've got these lots of Kit Kats that I'm going through, and my one Kit Kat a day is turning into two Kit Kat a days, but that's fine because I have plenty of them, which is good. But I am going through them quite fast because it might. If I have two Kit Kats in the morning, I forget if I've eaten any in the evening because it's like, did I have them this morning or did I have it yesterday? So sometimes I might be eating three or four Kit Kats a day, but it's fine because they're small packs. I think the big ones, when you get four in a pack, it actually prevents you from, once you've opened it, you kind of have to finish it, but it prevents you from wanting to open it because you're like, oh, I'm hungry, I want something, but I don't really want. If you have two and you want more, you end up having two. But if you open four, and you force yourself to eat it, but then afterwards you feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or say if you're only a little bit hungry and you just think, oh, I don't want to open a 4 pack. I want to stick with a 2 pack, but I don't have a 2 pack. So I do prefer the 2 packs because you're more tempted to have it. But anyway, on the way back there was someone I was talking to about vegan. There was some people and they were filming it as well. But yeah, I don't think they would have heard my voice on it because it was the camera was a long way away, so I don't think they were getting what I'm saying. But I don't know. He was trying to support the idea of just no one eating meat, and I don't really support that because I like meat, and it's not just a selfish purpose. I think these animals should be raised up because souls go through the process and eventually they become human. And if you are having farms, okay, you're teaching them obedience and stuff, but isn't that what the government teaches? The government. I don't think I made my points come across. For me to have an opinion and be able to speak properly, I need to actually think about it. And the things that he was saying to me, I was saying things, but I was thinking, am I wording this properly? Is this really what I want to say? If you don't really know what you're saying, if you're having a debate and you want it to be filmed, it's good to know what you're talking about. And if you're if you kind of just sprung with this subject and you think, well, I definitely prefer meat, but I need to think about all the reasons why I prefer meat, and I haven't really done that, but I'm just going to say my first opinion. So I don't think I really made strong opinions, but it's got me thinking about it. Why would I still encourage people? I think I have talked about it before. I've always said I prefer meat because, but I don't really, I haven't worded it properly. I haven't practiced wording it properly, but I think the reincarnation process is real. He didn't believe that it was real, and I couldn't convince him that it was real, because if I would have done, I would have had to go on about how I was Leah and I am Christ, and I know that reincarnation is the truth, and you're talking to God. Right? I didn't want to go into that conversation because he wouldn't have believed. He was there to help animals. He wasn't there to help me. So. But yeah, I have a huge hatred towards humans because I don't feel like anyone wants to help me. And it was horrible seeing the screen and just seeing, that's what animals are going through. Pigs are having their tails cut off, and And the pigs in the videos though looked a lot older than 2 weeks. They looked like almost like they looked like 2 months old piglets, not two. Maybe I'm wondering if they deliberately like cut the tails off piglets that were like 2 months or something. Because I was looking at that thinking that looks very very wrong. And then I've done the research, and apparently they get their tails cut off within the first 2 weeks, so it's more like circumcision or something. But yeah, um, yeah, I'm sure that the piglets in the video were a lot older than 2 weeks. But I'm wondering if that was deliberately filmed just to make people feel more sorry for them. But I don't know. I can't really remember. I didn't know pigs got their tails cut off. But it sounded horrible. But it seemed bad, and on one hand, it kind of felt like he kept wanting an argument. I was trying to say that there's nothing wrong with farming. It's just as long as the animals are in good condition. And then he was like, "So you think it's fair to imprison people or enslave people?" And I actually turned around and said, "Yeah, eventually," because he kind of wound me up a bit. And then when I got right to the end of it, I was just like, "Yeah, yeah, enslave, eat, kill, whatever." That's I kind of got up a little because he kind of kept it didn't feel like he wanted to get into a debate. He felt like he kept wanting to prove me wrong, and I kept wanting to just say, "I'm God. Surely I've made these animals. These animals are not as intelligent as humans, and therefore you shouldn't say that They don't see themselves as these are pigs and stuff. They don't see it as enslavement. If they're living in a small condition, and all they see is they see the friends around them. They see the things that are around them. They are learning things, and he was saying that they don't learn anything. They just have a pointless life where they don't learn anything, and they just die. And I was trying to tell him that no, they do learn things. They learn to interact with other pigs. They learn to have babies. They learn, or they learn to make basic choices. Okay, it's not a good life. I'm not saying it's a good life in any way, but it definitely should be better than what it is. But yeah, I was trying to make my point as to why farming is okay, and he just wasn't believing anything that I was saying, which was kind of frustrating because it's like, I'm God, surely you should listen to me, but I'm not going to be able to say that because I know that you're just going to think I'm a crazy person if I did say that. So I didn't bother. But I think one of the problems with animal cruelty is that they're living in shacks, and they're living in accommodation that humans wouldn't want to live in because that is all they can afford right now. Right now, if you want to build a house, it costs a lot of money. You can't afford to keep chickens and pigs in these expensive housing. Why? Because humans want it, and the price is really, really high. But if there's going to be a housing market crash, if people are going to be going off to heaven, and if there's going to be a whole bunch of empty houses, I could say skyscraper buildings, because skyscraper buildings are, there's one. It's actually got a bit darker, but there's one just over there with the two lights on or something. But if there is like a local building that's just full of chickens and stuff, eggs are quite useful. It'd be nice to just walk down there and just buy some eggs that are from a real thing. And if the chickens live in flats, okay, you might think it's not appropriate, but as long as they have little rooms, part of why it's so horrible to live in a shed full of thousands of chickens is that it must be so noisy. Just all the chickens making noises, and it's just so noisy. Whereas if they were living in smaller rooms, it would probably be a lot quieter, a lot more personal. Some of these places have they have windows and balconies, and you don't need a high ceiling. It would be a lot easier to warm or heat up. In fact, you might not even need to heat it up if they've got. If they're getting lots of sun come through, and if the buildings, if sun's coming through all the windows and the sun is like heating up the building, you might not even need extra heating. You might, in the winter, in the very cold months you will, but not in the spring or autumn and stuff. Whereas sheds, I can imagine sheds actually getting quite cold in the winter because they've got a huge amount of space on the top of them, which would probably be hard to heat. But I don't know. I'm sure there's ways to give them better lives. But yeah. There'll be, if there's less people, then there'll be less need to grow, to build them, or to have lots and lots of chickens, and there might be more. There'll be less demand for them. So I don't know. The conditions will get better if people cared more as well. I think if people believed in reincarnation, which is annoying because if I've known it, but I've got proof and evidence of reincarnation for 11 years, and if I would have told people this 11 years ago that these chickens are human, basically they're human, their souls are the same as humans, just less evolved. If I told people this, I'm sure people would have given them better housing and conditions a long time ago. But because a lot of people don't see it that way, they just see these as a commodity, which is what he was saying. They just see them as a commodity. But isn't that what everyone sees? I mean, isn't that what I'm God? But wouldn't people see Christ as just a commodity? You get to heaven by sacrificing God. Isn't that just one more slave, one more that you don't care about? And if the only way for you to find out the truth about who God is that if the only way for me is for me to suffer for you to gain, is that wrong? Does that mean that I shouldn't go through it? I mean, I don't want to go through it, and likewise a chicken doesn't want to be killed so that someone can eat it. But it's part of life. Suffering and growing is part of life. But I do think they get unnecessary. Some of the pictures I was seeing, the chickens look, the hair, the fur, the feathers had already been taken off them. It's just like, chickens are supposed to have nice feathers. They're supposed to look good. Some of the pictures looked really bad. And it's awful to think the reason why they're living in these conditions is because houses are too expensive. They're not going to buy these chickens a nice house if houses are expensive. But if there's going to be a market, if there's going to be a whole bunch of houses that people don't want, because why would you live in the countryside when you can live in London? And if house prices in London were affordable, more people would start moving to London, and there's going to be probably a lot of empty houses. And if you start buying up the empty houses and just paying for the maintenance, general maintenance and clearing up of chicken poo and stuff like this, I'm sure we can get chickens and pigs and lambs. Well, lambs kind of need grass, but I'm sure we can get them better place to live. But it's yeah, kind of tempted to want to go back and see if I see them doing some filming on Birmingham High Street, I might. But it's always the weekend that they always do the filming, or they'd always do these protests in the weekend, and I never really go to town in the weekend. But yeah, I would like to do some interviews where I give my opinions. The problem is, I feel like they're going to see me as the bad one. They see themselves as the good ones. They're the vegans. They don't eat meat. You don't need to eat meat. I'm the cruel one for choosing to eat meat. I'm the cruel one for being okay with chickens living in farms. And that's not okay for them. So they would see me as the bad one. But I don't know if they want to use these videos to make me look like the bad one. If I'm promoting myself as God and they've got a video clip of me just saying, yep, just kill all the I was fed up at the end of it. I was just like, yep, kill all, because they were saying you wouldn't enslave, kill, and eat humans, so why would you do it to animals? And I was kind of just like, nope, yep, I would do all those things, yep, just enslave eating humans, and technically there is some truth to that. The humans, Homo sapiens, killed the Neanderthals, and technically the Neanderthals were important because that's part of the growth of how humans became humans through the knowledge that they learnt when they were Neanderthals, and likewise humans become or are a good human because of the this. But it is confusing though, because if there's going to be a massive population reduction, then the Matrix is not going to be looking for more souls to become human. Hence, farming is not necessary. Not as necessary. Part of farming right now, or if nothing happens, if you don't come to me, part of the farming, I guess, would be to make to humanize the animals. Say this is a farmer. This looks after you. Likewise, when you become human, you have a government and they'll look after you and stuff. But it's not really. It's if the population's going to drop and the Matrix is going to have a huge, the Matrix is not going to be looking for human souls within animals. It's going to be looking for human souls within the ex-human population. So things might change when. I don't know how that would work, because it's awful to think that these chickens are suffering, and there is going to be a population collapse, and they're not going to choose. The Matrix isn't going to choose a chicken that suffered all its life over a human that suffered all its life. It's going to choose the most intelligent souls to be humans again. And if the population is going to be reduced, then none of these chickens are going to make it to a human species. But when they get into the wild, when they are reborn as seals or or penguins or puffins or other animals. I think they're going to appreciate their freedom. That's what I can say. These animals that are suffering in farms, when they probably won't make it to be a human, even if they have gone through a whole life of suffering, just because there's hopefully going to be enough humans to choose from. But they'll appreciate their freedom a lot more. Although it makes you think. I was looking at all the seals running into the sea, and I was just like, yeah, if these seals were all souls that were once raised in farms, I can understand why they're desperately running away from humans. Human, don't take me to the farm. I'm happy being a seal, or happy with my freedom. I think you can appreciate something a lot more when your condition's better. That's why I don't believe that you should help the poor too much. If you help the poor too much, you'll be giving them a much better life than what they deserve. What they deserve is a life according to what they've learnt and what they're able to provide for themselves. I get a job, I earn this much, I can pay for this much, I can buy these things, I'm going to spend wisely, and then you get a life according to what you spend. Now, when you start just giving people money and saying, okay, you can't afford a house, so here's a house, you can't afford rent, okay, here's a rent, here's stuff, and here's all the things you need, they're living a life that they shouldn't be living, because they can't earn, they can't work, they need to learn. Sometimes not having something makes you want to try harder to get it. I want my life to be better, and I'm going to work hard to get it. I'm in a prison, and I don't want to be in a prison, but when I get out of this prison, I'm going to enjoy it. Now, if a person is in a prison because they're not very bright and they're stupid, then it's just, if you don't help them, then their life's only going to get worse. Some people who need help, if you start helping them way too much, eventually they're going to start thinking, I want to do things myself. But when they start doing things themselves, they're going to find that their living condition worsens, because they're not going to be having all the free help and the free funding, because they don't need it. But because they don't need it, their lives are going to be far worse, because they're not going to have that much, and then they're going to start thinking, why am I thinking for myself, why am I doing things for myself? I'd rather just live off others and have a better life, because people are giving it to me. But yeah, it's a nice process, baby steps. You start off small, you get more, you get more, you get more, you get more. That's how life is. And the good thing about animal cruelty, or not animal cruelty, but farming cruelty, is that when they get better, when they get a better opportunity, and death, but dying young means that they're just one more step, or a lot closer to getting their chance of being in a different body and getting their freedom in a different life. If these places are so awful, then killing them is actually doing them a favour. But yeah, maybe they shouldn't be just squashed together like they are. Just squashed together. To think about how much land there is around the world, how many empty houses, how many abandoned houses there are in the world, and yet you've got chickens that are living like squashed together like sardines in a jar or something. To think that you've got all these animals squashed together in such a small space, when there's so many houses that are abandoned or empty. And how many chickens could you fit in one of these empty houses? If the answer is a lot, why don't you just put the chickens in the empty houses?